On this week's Industry Relations, Rob and I give our year-end predictions. Let's go.
This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. In today's tough real estate market, keeping buyers motivated and loyal is key. Now is the time to leverage the power of One Home by CoreLogic and the best-in-class data and client collaboration experience it brings. Seamlessly integrated into Matrix, One Home delivers unbeatable engagement and one of the highest customer satisfaction scores amongst the top 10 national real estate portals. More impressively, One Home leads the pack by keeping users coming back with the highest repeat visits. With One Home's invite-only access, agents can provide their clients a truly exceptional experience. Don't forget to remind your MLS members to try this great value-added benefit. If your MLS hasn't added One Home yet, please reach out to your CoreLogic rep. Thanks again to CoreLogic for sponsoring the Industry Relations podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, the Notorious Rob, and as always, my amazing co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson.
No,
Yeah, baby.
I'm recording from home here, so
Don't you normally?
no,
No,
I
you
usually
okay?
in my office, kind of
That's right.
garage studio office. I usually am, but
See,
yeah, just
that just shows how you're Gen X. I'm like younger in mind. Like this is home office. You actually have an office.
yeah. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of home so I can come home.
Exactly. I should do
Yeah,
the same, but
yeah.
I don't because I'm immature basically. So that's the answer.
Your closet shut in.
That's right. So this is our final episode of the year. And
That's
in
right.
retrospect, we probably should have done last week's episode, which was the year in review for this one. But it's okay. Next year we'll do that. So this one is something that I don't know if we did this last year or not. I can't remember.
I think we wrapped it into some
We
one
might have.
episode, like a
Yeah.
holiday party, we just called it or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this one will be our predictions episode, where we will predict what's going to happen in 2025. And I know you've already written like your predictions. I think you made 3. I made 7 predictions, which I do every year. But my predictions in the written piece anyway is all meant to be like wrong, like guaranteed wrong.
Well, I think you kind of did your year-end report card on that, and
Yes.
I think you usually do a little bit better than you
No,
did this past
hey
year.
man, last few years I've been batting like 1 for 7.
Right.
One
Yeah.
for 7, like maybe 1.1.5 for 7. So, which is exactly the way it should be. But I think for this episode, I'm actually going to try and make some predictions that I think are you know, reasonably likely to come true. So that's the special
Okay. No,
spin on this one.
I love to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that said, I figured you should start. Yield the floor. Give me your top prediction of
Yeah.
what you think will happen.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I'll. It's not going to be much of prediction because I don't think it's going to be really statistically relevant in a sense, but um, but I think we. I always go back to the number of transactions
Sure.
because for us in a vendor space, I mean that matters a lot, right? And it matters for agents too, right? Not as much as people think. I mean, there's still a majority of agents that don't do transactions. They're still members, right? But
Right.
um, I think we're going to see a modest kind of increase in transactions. And again, we're starting from a lowest of low in these past couple years of probably I would say maybe 3% more than last year, which I think
Okay.
would be somewhat significant. Still very low from the 5 millions, which we normally should be at. But I think we're going to see more. I think that we hit the bottom, and I think we're gonna start creeping up. Although that slope is going to be
Okay.
pretty small, right? So
Okay.
that would be my first prediction that I think.
So hold on. Let's
But
actually put
that
some
that is a
numbers on
basis,
this.
I think, of a lot of things that happen in the industry.
Okay. So let's put some numbers on this. I think the
Yeah.
last report I saw, NAR came with something that said they're looking at 4 million based on November numbers.
Really, yeah, either 4 million or just below 4 million. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I want to say it might have been just a touch over. We'll just call it 4 million, right? Because
yeah,
October numbers were below 4 million, so this
yeah.
was an improvement. So November of 2025. What's the number in your mind?
Well, are we doing it to November 2025, or are
Well,
we doing it
because
like
that's the last set of numbers we're gonna get in 2025. Like we'll get December numbers next year. Do you know what I mean? It's delayed a little bit.
right, right? But I mean, shouldn't we do it on that? I mean, shouldn't we just, I mean, we can hold off the predictions till January or the counter here.
Sure,
Um,
whichever you want. Yeah. So what's
so
the
so what's that
transaction
saying?
number for next
Yeah,
year?
for next year, I think it's over 4 million, right? So so what is that? What's 3% of 4 million, right? Right. So
220,000.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you figure 4.12 million.
Yeah.
Okay, we should write this down somewhere.
All right.
If we had a
Well,
producer,
Cole's
hey
keeping
Cole.
Cole's keep,
All right, you're at 4.12 million. Where do I think it's going to be? I think it's going to be 3.8.
yeah. Wow. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, 3.8 for next
so
year.
you think it's gonna do a down? It's gonna go
I
back
think it's going to
down,
go
huh?
down. Yeah. Because I
Okay.
expect, so this is a related question, right? Um, what do you think mortgage rates will be in December of 2025?
Okay. I've
For
got
reference, right now,
yeah,
I'm looking up right now, I'm seeing a rate of six and a quarter.
yeah. I think it'll be in this between the 6 and 7 range. Yeah.
So let's do a number. Pick a number.
Okay. 6 point. What is it? 6 point what right
It's a
now?
six and a quarter right now.
Yeah. 6.3.
6.3, so slightly higher. I think mortgage rates in December of next year will be seven and a half.
Okay. So can I tell you why I think that's less
Yes.
of a
Yes.
indicator?
Okay, tell me.
So the agents, I think we talked about this the last show. It's like, as we've always talked about, I've said before, we're never going to see, sub 5% mortgage rates in
Mm-hmm.
our lifetime ever
Mm-hmm.
again. That was an anomaly that is not going to happen. Certainly not below four,
Yeah.
right? So, but people still have this anchoring of like their neighbors got a, 2.9% or a 3.4% or whatever.
Yeah.
And from what I'm talking with agents and brokers, the farther away we can get from those numbers where the anchoring isn't there, the better for us. Still, 6.3, 7.5 even are historically low. I know there's affordability and those kind of things, but I'm not sure the interest rate's going to have. I think again, any further out that we can get from where we were at,
Mm-hmm.
2021, 2020, those kind of sub zero, the ZERP, era is going to be good for real estate. I mean, it's
Okay.
just going to get more people to like finally bite the bullet and just, hey, the good time that's never going to happen again.
Sure.
We got to make a decision. So
Sure.
that's where I would be.
Okay. Next number, which then feeds into our first number, right? Right now, today, average home price in the United States is 420,000
Yeah.
and change, but we'll call it 420. What do you think the median home price in December of next year?
Yeah, so this has gone up like hasn't this gone up like 30+% since pre-pandemic, right?
Okay.
Am I
Yeah.
correct in that, right?
Way more. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
okay, so
almost
way
doubled,
more, right?
basically.
Almost doubled, right? So um, again, supply demand, I'm thinking there's gonna be a little bit more. So what did you say it was for
It's
what?
420 today.
Yeah, okay. So for 460.
460.
Yeah, not that much of an increase, but
That's
an
almost
increase
a
nonetheless.
10% increase.
Is it? Is it more of a
40,000. Yeah.
yeah, maybe that is a little high. Okay, 430.
Okay. I'm going to go with 460.
Okay, yeah. See what you did there, Cole. I stole his number, so and you knew I was going to be
No,
kind
I
of
was just
lower.
surprised that you would have gone that high. Okay, so let's
Yeah,
talk about it.
I mean, in percentage wise, you're right. I was just
Yeah.
thinking like
Why? What's again, like we're just
supply and
randomly
demand.
guessing.
I do not think we have solved the supply problem here,
Sure.
and I think as we get further along, I'm predicting there'll be more
More demand.
transactions, right?
Okay.
So more demand, supply demand. I think it's a pretty simple.
But who's buying us? At 420 we have a giant affordability crisis.
Well, yeah, but we still did, 4 million transactions even at those levels,
Yeah,
right? So I mean, there's money out there. I mean,
yeah.
I was watching who's that guy from New York, the the guy Seahant or Seahart,
Sirhan, Ryan
Sturhan,
Sirhan.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. He's talking about how it used to be before where parents would help their kids buy a house by helping with down payment or something like that. Now the parents are just buying the kid a place because
right,
they can't afford it, right?
right.
There's still a little bit of still that going on. So I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are still sitting on a lot of money.
Okay,
The stock market, while I mean, while the housing market, and again, we can argue what's a good market, what's a bad market, as we did on another podcast, but the stock market has been going through the roof,
hmm,
right, last year. I mean, so there's a lot of people that can, that have done pretty well here the last couple of years in the stock market that can turn that into another type of asset,
right,
right?
right.
So, yeah,
Okay, all right. My assumption essentially is that Trump's going to print money like crazy.
yeah, really. I mean,
Yeah,
what about Doge? I mean, there's already some, you know, uh, those guys didn't want, the last kind of budget to be passed because of all the spending, and
right,
they went ahead anyway, right? So,
right.
so it's not really Trump. I mean, maybe you're talking about like, I don't think that regardless of who's in charge there, Congress can just has an insatiable need to fucking spend,
Right. No, and I
right?
think they're going to I think they're going to spend an assload of money, and I think they're going to, and a part of it is even things like Doge, right? Because remember when Elon was talking about Doge, what he said is, let's give these federal workers like these incredibly generous, separation pay, right? So that they're not going to freak out. He's like, I don't want to punish the people. I just want to get rid of the head count.
Right. Kind of like an earlier a gold handshake,
Kind
so to
of right.
speak.
It's like, look, you're going to get a year, salary, right, with a severance, or 2 years of severance. Like, private companies never do that. You look, if you get 30 days, you get 2 weeks notice. So I figured that's going to cost a bunch of money. Um, and then there's the other stuff that he's already floated. Like we should buy Greenland. Okay, well that's money printing. So all the money
Yeah,
printing to
it's
me says rates are going to be higher, and home price is going to be way higher, and it'll take longer than a year for that to filter down to salaries. So wages aren't going to go up next year. Asset price is going to go through the roof. So I think we're probably looking at below 4 million, transactions, and at much higher. So 10% higher is not crazy to me because of all the money printing, and rates are going to be much higher. I think inflation is going to be through the roof, basically. So
yeah,
seven or
but I mean
seven and
that's
a half,
so
I think,
different
is too
from
low.
what he campaigned on, right? I mean, it's
Agreed.
just yeah.
Agreed. But there's a guy, Luke Groman, that I've mentioned many, many times. I really follow him. He just talks about you've got to devalue the dollar if you're going to do anything like Doge. And devaluing the dollar basically means money printing. So where we're going to get hurt is inflation, right? Like
But
real
that's the whole
inflation.
thing he ran on was like,
I
hey,
know.
I had the best economy. We didn't have inflation and
I
interest
know.
rates were low, and this
I
is going
know.
to be. I hope the Trump voters pay attention to what happens
I
because
know.
the midterms are going to be fucking ugly then, right?
Midterms, and I think that's why he's going to do the big money printing and do all that now, right? Because the inflation's going to hurt, but if he can't get same stuff like Doge done, if he can get some of the things that he ran on done, then by midterms, that's 2 years, inflation may start coming down, right? So we might spike up to 10, 15% inflation rates.
I think those have a longer tail than that, but yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. But, there's like, you got to turn it around. In other words, if you don't do that, then things are going to be really shitty when the midterms are around. Do you know what I mean? Like if 2 years from now, inflation's at 12 percent and home prices are 500,000, and like then you lose. Right? That's
Yeah,
when you
but I mean,
lose.
this all inflation from what I've read is caused by the money printing that happened
Agreed.
in,
Agreed.
under his administration
Agreed.
and under Biden's
Yeah, I
administration,
know.
right?
I know. But you have
So they
36
just
trillion in
keep the
debt.
party going, huh?
Well, you got to pay back the 36 trillion in debt. Hence, you got to inflate the hell out of the dollar. Right? It's either that or repudiate the debt
I
and
was
then.
having a great holiday weekend. My family was here. we were all having a great time, and everybody got all that what they wanted for Christmas, and
Yeah,
it was great meals, and
yeah.
then you got to drag me onto this
What do you mean
goddamn
drag?
podcast.
Like you and I are gonna benefit. We're asset owners, so our assets are gonna go through the fucking roof. It's Cole and my sons, like they're fucked, but you and I are great.
Well, it's all going to them anyway, as far as I'm concerned. So
I
at
mean,
some
but
point.
yeah, at some point, but by that time, the government's probably gonna take 80% of your shit as inheritance taxes. I mean,
Oh
so
my God.
you want to worry 20, 30 years from now. I'm saying next year things will be great for us, because we own assets. For the workers, it's gonna
What do you
fucking
think the
blow.
stock market's going to do?
I think it's going through the roof,
Yeah, okay,
right through the roof
I'm happy
because
with that then.
yeah, again, just dollar money printing like crazy,
Yeah.
right? All right, so that's the economics. So based on that, you made some other predictions, man. Some cool ones. So,
Remind me of what the ones you thought I had, right?
I mean, it was basically around MLS because that's obviously our subsector,
Yeah.
right? I think you also predicted MLSs will start divorcing, and so
Yeah,
uh,
I know. I mean, I know. I absolutely right. I think there is again the emperor has no clothes, right? I think there's just you know um uh it's not even like a thing you wonder. It's just where's the pony? What is going on here? I
it's
mean, I
just
just don't.
obvious.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now where I disagree with you is that I think you think that the relevance of an MLS that MLSs are just going to go away. I don't.
Not
I don't.
next
I
year.
don't.
I've never
I
said
don't even.
next year.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I just saw. I just saw um, that the agenda for CEO Connect came out in New York,
Yeah.
right? And just like clockwork, there was a fucking session on the demise of MLS, right?
Hmm.
So it's like this is a cliche. It's a trope.
Yes.
It's just every year this thing comes out, everybody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
I think the MLS has got to change their value proposition, and
Of
I
course.
think there's a lot of room to do there. But I don't think anybody thinks that NAR has, you know, if that's necessary for them to be part of that organization, right?
Right.
And I think it's probably not served the MLS community very well being associated with them.
Of course not.
And it's now I don't wish them any will. I hope they get their shit together, right?
You mean NAR?
NAR,
Yeah.
but I don't think 5 years from now the MLSs will be less relevant. I think they're going to find a way to become even more relevant.
Well,
So
okay. I mean, I guess
yeah.
that's going to be our conversation at Reset because I have ideas on how to do that, but I genuinely wonder what you think the MLS is going to do to be more relevant.
Oh, I
Because
think there's lots of stuff here for sure,
yeah, to go
for
from being
sure.
a de facto monopoly to not, and then to be more relevant. Like, all right, but that's another. Okay, so 2025, and this is the tough part, right? Because like I said, I think MLS relevance, all that, is still a few years away. That's not next year, right? I think next year is all about NAR, right? And the big question is state associations, right? Like the locals, it's obvious what they're gonna do, right? They're gonna do like Phoenix is doing, right? Uh, but what and the NAR obviously they're going. They have a lot of money. They'll keep going on inertia for a while. What do the states do?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's different. I think there might be some states out there that do a lot better than some of the local associations, right? So maybe in the smaller states and such. So you have to kind of look at, I think, it by case basis. But I mean, we had them on before, and I still haven't really gotten this out of my mind. It's we need to build,
Build what?
right? We need more houses,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I think there's a lot of work to be done to get this NIMBYism out and into a mindset where we're building again, right? And this, again, I reread a lot of it over this past week, and housing solves so many other problems in
Yes.
this country. that if I'm a state running a state association, I'd be on that fucking bandwagon quick
Hmm.
and trying to make my, might not make a lot of, friends or whatever, but I mean, and again, just like you said, maybe new buildings aren't going to affect the economy right away, or the realtor economy right away, but it's setting up for more inventory for later on,
Of
right?
course.
And you talk about our boys being screwed. This is going to help set them not being screwed, right?
Of
I mean,
course.
so there are still some subjects out there. There's still some things that I think that advocacy and
Okay.
things that associations are supposed to be really kind of like at their core what they're being able to deliver.
Sure.
And I think that's where these guys can kind of step in if they want to, make a difference here. And I think that's building is a way of making a difference.
All right. Well, here's the thing, members. Uh, do you know offhand how many members CAR has?
Yeah, I think it's about 110, 111.
Okay, so call it 110,000, right?
Might be 120 by now.
Let's
Jesus.
say let's say it's 110,000, 120,000.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I agree that the state associations have an important role to play. What I'm wondering is how many of that 120,000 will keep paying CAR to be a member? That's what I'm wondering about. And CAR is one of the, I mean, it's the largest, right? They have a lot of benefits. They have a lot of stuff that they do
Yes.
for
Yeah.
members.
Like I said, I think it varies state to state
Right.
of how that goes.
But
Like
if you're going to look at,
Alabama might be different from California,
that's right.
right?
But if you're going to look at like benefits, from the state association, I think you'd have to say CR is at the top of the list, right? I mean, they
Yeah, I mean
literally,
they're the ones that started the Rebs with the forms, that
hmm
got
yep,
that got a national license and then was
yep,
sold, right? I
yep,
mean, so they've been
yep,
doing a lot of those kind of
yep,
things forever.
yep. And, like, so there, if I think if you're going to look at state associations, you have to put CR at the top as like the model. Okay. Given that, how many of the 120,000 people sign up and pay CAR dues?
Well, I mean, again, they've kind of invented the forms game. Um, maybe not. I mean, I tell you, Northwest MLS is really superior at that as well. But I mean, they've really got a lock on those forms, right? So I mean, as long as they keep a lock on those forms, unless other MLSs or other associations, I should say, either come up with their own set of form sets and try to end around it that way. Um, I think they've got a pretty good chance of keeping relevance. I think CAR, I think the same goes for FAR. They've got, again, their own forms simplicity. They have also that tech support line that they sell. There's other things that are kind of innovative that they've done.
So
Um,
apart from forms, if CAR and Florida realtors no longer have forms, right, then what?
well, I guess it's the other things that there. California is a very complicated state, as you kind of remind me
Of
all the
course.
time,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's some advocacy stuff that they do that are up, a bit above and beyond. They're run very well, or have been. Um,
I'm completely
so
agreeing, right?
yeah.
What I'm saying though is out, out of the 120,000 current members, how many of them value that advocacy enough to want to keep paying CAR dues?
Okay, and you're saying if the forms go away?
Right, if the forms go away.
Well, I mean that's a big if. I mean, shit.
I don't think it's that big. If so, I'm going to remind you. Remember when we talked about forms a few months ago, right? The biggest issue with forms by state associations, it's a committee of competitors getting together and making decisions, right? And that has been the hook by which the Department of Justice, Sitzer, Burnett, every one of these lawsuits, how they wrap the brokers into the lawsuit is to say you're part of this conspiracy because you're part of this committee of
Right, but I
competitors.
don't think that precludes them from coming up a way where that isn't the case, but they're still the provider of those forms,
How?
right? Well, they hire some fancy law firm,
Right,
right,
right.
to do the forms in a fucking sealed room somewhere.
Does the board of
And
directors get to say yes or no to that form?
I think if they come to a conclusion that it threatens the existence of the state association, they would say, no, we don't have a. If
Okay,
that's going to threaten our existence, then we don't.
okay. then I guess it'll have to be that, right? Like,
Or it'll be some hybrid that they can kind of get away with. I mean, they're going to try to push the line as much as they can, and not get sued or not be irrelevant, right? So,
so
they'll
that's
do that. I
so
mean, the larger issue I think to me is,
if forms were no longer the case, like we could have a whole
yeah, but I
thing
mean,
about
yeah,
forms.
but okay, if there was no real estate, would they
Nah,
be
dude.
around? I mean,
No, my point is this: like with the stuff I've heard about state associations, right across the board, the value that people find typically are two things, right? One is forms, and the other one's a legal hotline, right?
okay,
And the thing that I'm wondering about is, and then of course the third one is advocacy, which you and I and some of the other people we know who are a little bit more aware, I suppose, of the value of the lobbying, right? We get it, right? But consistently, the stats have proven that roughly 15% even respond to calls for action, right? So if the value of CAR were essentially, so leave the forms to the side, right? Because that is a necessary thing. If it were lobbying and legal hotline, what percent of the 120,000 would voluntarily say, I want to be part of that? Do you know what I'm saying? I think it's
yeah,
about 15%,
right, okay,
maybe
and
20 because of the legal hotline, right? And if CAR goes to 20,000 members, that's, do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a big effing deal.
yeah, but I mean, you've got a lot other, other complications in there. I think really the question you're asking should be around the three-way agreement, right?
Right,
Not just the state, right? It's just a three-way agreement.
right. Which is
That's
one
the
of my
question.
predictions, right? That it's going to go away next year.
Yeah, I mean, you think nationally or just state by state or what?
I think de facto it goes away. And I think Phoenix Association might be the nail. They might be the wedge that really forced that issue, right? Because I just recorded a little wargaming thing about this. I'm like, if you're NAR, you cannot compromise with Phoenix, right? You have to crush Phoenix. If you're Phoenix, though, you cannot compromise with NAR, right? So it becomes like an existential struggle between those two. And I think Phoenix wins that one because they own and control the MLS and NAR doesn't,
Yeah, it's going to be definitely getting your popcorn out, right?
right? And if once that happens, then, I mean, dude, between you and I bet we could name 50 local associations that would do the exact same thing Phoenix is doing.
Right. So let's pull the string on that a
Yeah,
bit. I mean, let's go back to your 20,000 number, right?
sure.
So the structure of this is important, right? Because you have membership. Let's talk about, right? I mean, if brokers feel that because I don't know if there's any protections under the state. You say legal hotline or whatever,
Yeah,
but it depends on the 20,000 you speak of, right? So if let's say 90% of that 20,000 are brokers, right?
okay.
Um, and they believe that membership in the state association is good
It's
for them
valuable.
and real estate.
Hmm.
They have a lot of influence under the agents they bring under their wing, right? So, that number, while you're saying it's a hard 20%, I'm thinking if just like we always talk about this podcast, we don't get maybe, we don't get 20% of the fucking real estate people listening
Oh,
to
hell
it, but
no. Yeah,
we get the right people listening to it. And that I think is the key here.
yeah,
If they get the right 20,000 people to feel that the state association membership is meaningful,
sure.
that influence can really trickle down and to the agents that are under that, right? So,
Sure.
maybe it's not as doom and gloom as you say to go down to 20,000, right? I mean,
I don't know if it's doom and gloom per se, but so let's actually go back to the three-way agreement. That goes away. The MLS has its own issues, but the MLS is not going to see huge losses in membership anytime soon. Do you know what I mean? Be like next year, most brokers and agents are gonna be like, of course I have to join the MLS. It's just a given. Okay? Next year. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe that's a different thing. But next year, I think everyone's just gonna be like, cool, I need the MLS. And the fight is, I don't want to join the association to get access to the MLS. Right? That's going to be the fight. What Phoenix did is to say, hey, you know what? We know that fight's coming. So why don't we get ahead of the curve and we'll offer them this MLS choice concept, right?
Right.
Which is essentially you can join the local, right, and get MLS and forms and whatever, all the other things that we give to our
Well,
members.
their forms, right?
Their
That's
forms,
that's
correct,
the
not
key.
the
Yeah.
state forms, right?
Right.
Okay. NAR is obviously not going to fight that. Arizona is the big question, right? Because here's the dilemma for Arizona. They could fight it because obviously forms, right? If Phoenix is allowed to do its own forms, then it creates chaos in the marketplace and it devalues membership in Arizona. So they might want to fight it. The problem for Arizona is just like Nevada, right? California is a little different. Like just like Nevada, Nevada is basically Las Vegas and Reno.
Right.
Arizona is basically Phoenix and Tucson. And if you alienate your largest metro area, you may as well stop existing. Right? So Arizona politically is in a really weird position, right? If you believe 100% that NAR is going to win and crush Phoenix somehow, then you get with NAR. If you
I
if you
have.
don't believe that, you
Yeah.
might want to think twice about going against your largest metro area.
I've been thinking about reaching out to Matt Consalvo about this because I haven't really talked to him about how
Right.
he feels about this all everything. I really should have done that before this, but Matt, if you're watching during this, you're probably gonna get a phone call after we record this or a text.
Matt's too smart to tell you anything. He's gonna be like, "We're just the MLS. We just do
Yeah.
whatever the associations want us to do."
Maybe I can get the off record, Matt, if that exists.
So,
It is. You got to give. I don't know what ARMLSs or any other MLSs feelings are on Phoenix is what they're doing, but you got to give the Phoenix guy. I mean, a little chutzpah they have going on there, right? With
uh, I
what they're doing.
I love what they're doing. I mean, we should get their CEO on this podcast, right? Because they're gonna fight it, and they're not, and I think they're gonna win. And the issue is, if they win, then we have real drama happening next
I
year.
don't know. I think when you say win, to me, I just think it'll be classic NAR fashion. Well, we've always said that, compensation can be anything it wants to be. It doesn't have to be a penny or
Right,
something else. It's going to
right,
be one of these hand
right,
waving things where,
right,
pay attention to
right,
don't pay attention to the droids. These aren't the
right.
droids you're looking for. They're going to try to Jedi mind trick the industry where, when it gets too close, it's like, well, actually, we've never really said that
Hmm.
before, right? I mean, I think there's going to be one of those kind of moments coming up.
Here's a problem.
Hopefully,
Okay, fine. Here's a problem. I don't think this issue is one that NAR can hand wave the way they did when Bright MLS told them to fuck off, right? The reason for it is because it really does impact dues dollars, right? In other words, like let's say I don't know their membership count. Let's say Phoenix Associates has 10,000 members today, right? So they're sending NAR 10,000 people times $140. Okay.
right? Okay, all right.
If NAR says, "Oh no, we were fine with this MLS choice thing. That's not real membership." Okay, 80%, 8,000 people just sign up for MLS choice. Now you're losing 8,000 times $140 in dues that it will not be sent to NAR. So this isn't something NAR could just hand wave. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it is and it isn't. Because let's just say they hand wave it, right?
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, you're allowed. Yeah,
you're allowed, okay,
yeah,
but they're not going to they're not going to and maybe they have to make some sort of adjustment where because let's I mean it sounds like you've got a video on this, but let me
I
let
do.
me
Yeah,
walk it
yeah,
through
yeah, yeah.
myself. So Phoenix says you don't have to join the state in order to have MLS access.
Yep,
It basically, it's, again, three-way agreement,
it's
right?
gone. Yeah,
It's gone,
you
right? So
only
the
have to
state
join
of
us.
so you only have to join us, right?
Yep,
NAR is like, you can't do that.
right.
They're trying to preserve the sanctity of the three-way agreement,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. And
The
the
holy
realtor brand,
trilogy,
right?
the
And
holy
right, right,
trilogy,
and
right?
protect the realtor brand.
Right. Protect the realtor brand, but brand. Anyway, so they carve out. And they say, well, we're going to let you do this. right? Because of some hand waving gesture
Sure.
of doing that,
Sure.
right? And by doing that, um, I mean, it's going to be discovered that what is the real savings here, right? That they're actually saving. I don't think it's going to be enough if they put too much light on this, and it causes, and they have to have a lawsuit that says you have to break this up. If NAR just allows it, right?
Right.
Um, I mean, what are they going to be saving?
What are you going to be
$70 a
saving?
year? I mean, money
The
wise.
agents?
Yeah.
Probably 300 a year.
Is it 300?
Because it's
Or is
140.
that the total?
It's 140 for
Okay.
NAR,
Okay.
right? And then the state association.
Okay. So how much to join all three? The MLS and whatever else.
Probably I don't know. Let's call it 600
Okay, so 600 a year
down to
and
200.
down to 200.
Right. I mean, it's basically you're paying three dues. You go from paying three dues to one.
Well, you're going to pay the MLS dues and you're going to pay
But
the
the
association.
MLS is separate. You're going to pay for the MLS, right? In any event, I'm just saying you go from paying three dues to one. That's a pretty big savings, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably, if I'm NAR, I'd just let him waive it
Right.
and then, count on people just being lazy and say, you really wanted? Are you sure you want to you leave us? And here's the
Okay.
7 reasons why. I
All
mean,
right.
think of all the damn we want you back emails kind of
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
get, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there'd be a
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
campaign. I think they probably do pretty
Yeah.
well with that.
Oh, I don't think they'll do well with that at all. If people had
But
the
you and I
choice,
know, you and I understand but they still think the emperor has clothes on, and then NAR is going to put an email showing them, fucking, with the latest couturier fashion that they
dude.
they can put on in an
First of
email, right?
all, first of all, I will say this: unless NAR changes course like dramatically, like next year, right? The renewal, if the Phoenix thing goes wide, the three-way agreement goes away, right? And brokers and agents are like, I can get the MLS, I can get forms, I can get lockboxes, I can get everything I need to run a business just by joining my local, right? NAR is going to lose every red state in the country.
NAR is going to lose every red state, so
Red
it's a
counties in the
political
country.
thing.
Yeah, because NAR is woke as fuck.
What are you talking about? There's
They're
it's a fucking
persecuting
article.
Christians for using Bible verses, right? While they're funding
They're
a drag
persecuting
show.
people that are making comments about homosexuals.
You could say, however, I'm just saying, if ages had a choice, I'm telling you, they're all going to be great, good riddance. It doesn't matter what kind of email NAR sends me, what kind of brochure or whatever. Like, look at all the wonderful things we're doing. Unless NAR completely changes course, they're going to lose half the membership just like that, just out of politics. Because it's not just politics, Greg;
I
it's
just
culture as well.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't again, I go to NAR's website like you tell me to, and I do a lot of things. I just don't, and I read these articles about who they're contributing to. I don't get the woke AF as
Okay,
much as you do, right? I don't think at that level. I mean, you and I are maybe would be more in tune to that kind of stuff, but your average agent, what they
dude,
look at is like the realtor ads on television, and now I can't call myself that anymore, right?
which they
Or
don't care about,
well,
which
I
nobody
mean, but
cares
but
about.
I'm not sure they're in the weeds that long, where or that thing where every red state we're going to lose every red state. I just don't see it.
Okay. Well, I'm just like, if NAR had to go and actually get individuals to join them, which is what we're headed towards, right? Like,
Which is a good thing.
like the NRA or AARP or any of these
Yeah.
other, like each individual real estate licensee would have to be like, you know what, I want to join NAR, right? They were going to lose 90% of membership overnight
Right.
because
So let me
80% will leave out of financially, and of the remaining 20%, half of them rely on conservative, so screw NAR.
right. Let me talk about let me segue into something here that's
Yeah.
interesting to me. Um,
Let's try
that kind
making
of
a prediction because it's a prediction show. But no, I'm kidding. Talk about whatever. Yeah. Segue.
like when do we ever follow the script, man? Come on.
True.
There was a book a while back, and I don't think I've talked about this before. The guy's name was Robert. Putnam, and we'll put this in the show notes. He's a social scientist, and he
Yeah.
had this book about it was titled "Bowling Alone,"
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? And the book basically talks about the decline of social clubs or just clubs in general,
Yes.
right? And you know, he has a stat out there, and I can't remember the stat, but like in the 1960s, there was like a million bowling leagues,
Yeah.
right? And now there's like three,
Yeah.
right? Because we stopped kind of getting together. And this goes back to kind of Kiwanis and
Yep.
fucking
Lions
and the
and yep.
Lions Club and all sorts of these types of things. And he just did a Netflix, I think it's on Netflix, and he talked about why you should join a club and why America depends on it. And
Yep.
like to get back to this kind of and like we had a hiccup in the pandemic days for sure,
Yeah.
but and it's called Join or Die.
Yeah.
Um, I'm partway through the book. I haven't watched the documentary, but there's a lot again, like we talked about how housing,
Yeah.
can solve a lot of can be as Professor Kaplan talked a real panacea
Yeah.
for all that ails. When we talk about social division in the country
Yeah.
and how red state, blue state,
Yep.
as we've been doing ever, um, joining a club, if you go back to what an association should be, part of that should be
A
just
social club.
bringing people together, right?
Completely. 100%.
And I think I would recommend to read the book or maybe watch the film is a little bit easier. But it's called Join or Die, and the book is called Bowling Alone.
Yep.
And maybe that can be a little bit of the answers that we need to kind of
A hundred
be
percent.
seeing, right?
Hundred
Yeah.
percent.
But I mean, as far as predictions, I mean,
Hold on.
I don't
Before
think that
hold on.
there's
Before
okay.
we go there, let's actually dwell on it because that is actually sort of important. Okay.
Okay.
What I will say though is this, because I belong to a couple of clubs. Do you belong to any clubs?
Yeah, sure.
Which one?
Well, I mean, I guess I've been a part of the boys the scouting association for a while, and I would call
Okay.
that a club, for instance.
Well,
I
like a
make my
golf
own
club?
clubs, but not a golf club.
Okay.
No, not currently.
So
No,
no other social clubs, Lions, Kiwanis, whatever, right?
no.
Okay.
Our scouting troop is sponsored by the Lions Club,
Okay.
but yeah,
But
but
so
I
you're
don't
in
really do a
scouting.
lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah,
So my clubs are all shooting clubs,
yeah.
right? Because whatever
Birds of a feather.
USPSA, what Las Vegas,
Right,
whatever.
right.
And the reason is this: it's very similar to golf clubs. I think for social clubs to really work, there has to be a joint activity
Yeah,
that people
for
like
sure.
doing,
Yeah,
right? So in my
bowling.
case, it's shooting guns. Other people, it's going to be golf. It's going to be cycling. It's going to be hiking,
Or it
whatever.
could be scouting. It could be
It
outdoor
could be
stuff like
scouting, right?
camping and
Right.
things like that. Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why it's sort of the tradition of the Kiwanis, the Lions Club, etc., is because there's no activity, really, right? So I could see bowling leagues coming back because at least people go and bowl together. With realtor associations, the question then to be asked is, what is the activity, right?
Yeah.
What is the activity that you would do together in this club, in this as a group, that everybody agrees like we should do this, right?
Yeah.
That's why we joined this club. And I think the answer for a very long time has been lobbying, right? What we do
Yes, for
together
sure.
is we lobby.
Yeah.
We talk
We
about
pick a
right,
cause and we go
right,
we approach that,
right.
further. Yeah.
Which the Lions, the Kiwanis, who's the other one? Sonny used to be a big part of it.
Rotary Club.
Rotary, right? Where their activity is charity. We're going to improve our local community. Like something like that is probably the next chapter for associations, right? So the fact that Phoenix is doing this thing with the MLS to sort of survive for now, it's not a good long-term strategy. It's a good strategy for the next 3 years, let's say 4 years, something like that,
Oh,
right?
they're fighting what's in front of them.
Right. They're dealing with the crisis right now. But what they and everyone else has to now think about is okay. But then after that, going forward, we have to create this. I love that you bring this up. This bowling thing. We have to create this activity that we all do together, right? That no one is forced to do it. Like you come because you want to do it. And you know what? Here's the thing. It can't be networking.
No.
It can't be
I think
like
that's
money
part of it.
oriented.
Yeah, it's got to be part of it. But like, here's how you run a neighborhood, clothing recycling
Right.
campaign.
Right.
Here's how you organize. I mean, things like that
That's right.
get them in front of people that also have a social kind of
That's right.
component to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Yeah.
it's again like it's exactly like church, right? Church is a
Yeah.
huge place for networking and society,
Well,
social work.
they're coming there to worship is their
Right. But
activity,
there's an
right? Yeah.
activity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that Realtor Association really need to work on is what is that activity? Now that the answer could be different for each association, but you got to figure that out, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the next challenge. Anyway, yeah. So just wanted to make that point. It's such a great point, man. We should talk about that book. We
No, I
should.
think so. Yeah, we
Yeah.
should. I mean, again, I will put the links in the show notes, but I think there's something there. And I've always been trying to like I wanted to do this twice this year, but put together like a prop tech informal meetings. I've done those at my
Mm-hmm.
garage
Yep.
studio
Yep.
back in 23.
Yep.
Hadn't did I had plans to do it this year, but I didn't. But bring that kind of prop tech community together. I know Drew
Right.
over at Geek Estate. He does a
Right.
wonderful job of
He
putting on these
does.
dinners and
He
meetups.
does.
I mean, you and I go to those things all the time,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
host
great
them.
to meet new people.
But
You host them.
I know, but here's the
Um,
thing. Like, this is why I'm bringing this up. Because the weakness of GEM, the weakness of any of those things, right, is that it's all networking and it's all contacts, it's all business, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But for something like, it would be great if there was an activity. In
yeah.
other words, like if you do a prop tech thing, right, if there was an activity that we all kind of wanted to do
Yeah.
together, that then naturally leads to networking and all the other benefits. When the activities we're just going to drink and eat, like it's not
Listen,
enough. It's not enough.
it's a hobby of mine.
Me too. I'm just saying, but it's not enough to get. I mean, and here's a great example of this. You're about to put on, I think, probably what's going to be a really important and fun event,
Mhm.
MLS Reset, right? What's the activity?
Well, we have golf the first day. We have
I
pickleball the first day. We
I
have,
know,
those kind of things. I
but
mean, but it's a conference. I think a
exactly
conference is different than a club, right? A club is something you're going to
on a regular.
on a regular, right? It's something in your local community. I mean, conferences are a little bit different. I mean, I think that some again, what was bar camp? Ari bar camp back in
Yeah,
the day,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
mean, that was probably activity there was drinking and networking,
yeah.
right? So I
Drinking
mean,
and networking.
I wouldn't say that drinking. I wouldn't say that networking and drinking together and eating together necessarily is not an activity. But I think if you combine it with more of a physical activity, I think you have more of a home run. I wouldn't say that those two things are not an activity.
It
They are activities. It's
yeah.
just I think if you marry it with something more physical, is probably a better thing,
I
right? That
guess
has a little bit of a competition to it as well. I think, right? I think that little bit of competition, I think, also adds to the thing. I know in scouting we had always the popcorn sale,
mhm.
right? All the parents, they would have these different things of and getting merit badges and things like that. There was always things that
But
related to that.
here's kind of what I'm saying. Though I agree with you, but when I think about conferences, I also think about academic conferences, right? So a friend of mine is a doctor and he goes to medical conferences. And one of the things that happens at medical conferences or academic conferences is that people present papers. Like they present their findings, they present their work, right? And we don't really have that.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I've gone to many numerous CMLSs where they have on stage people talking about a merger they just completed, or
Yeah,
some sort of thing that they've implemented on their MLS about
but
that
yeah,
they
I
wanted to
know.
share with the audience, right?
But it's a panel discussion. Like I'm gonna do a presentation at your event, right?
Right.
And it's just my thinking, but it's not like, and I'm happy to do it, right? But what would be really amazing is like, I don't know, just to throw something out, like Tanya Monestier,
Yeah.
presenting like her brief, like, or or maybe it's a prop tech company, right? That's going to present like, here's a paper, here's a white paper, here's a problem, like here's how we're solving it, like without it becoming a sales pitch, right? And
Tough.
that's why there's always going to be an element of that, but why can't we have Phoenix Realtors actually come and present and say,
Okay. Yeah. I
here's what
think
we're doing, right?
No, no, I mean that's a good idea, actually, one that I've thought of, right?
Yeah,
But again, I think you're veering off into that still is not a club, right?
but
That's
it's
a
an activity.
annual, it's an activity, but it's again, a club is something you're doing on the regular, it's something
Yeah, that's true.
local.
No, that's
You're
true.
talking about improving conferences,
That's true. That's
which
true.
those are great ideas, by the way, but I mean it's a little bit different. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
100% agreed. Okay. So we went off script because that's kind of what we do. What I will say is, if you're interested in the actual predictions that Greg and I have made, it's both Greg's is on Vendor Alley, mine's on Notorious Rob. Mine are hopefully all going to be wrong. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but we did make some predictions around the market, around some of the stats. Okay, let's do one more prediction to wrap this up because we've done
Okay.
this in past prediction shows. Okay, what is going to be the biggest M&A next year?
Oh wow, it's a great question. Man, the biggest M&A.
I think this year, without question, it is Compass buying out properties.
Okay, I mean, I think there's something there.
What will be the deal of 2025 that we're all going to be like talking about?
Yeah. It seems that Keller Williams has been battered a lot, right? I mean,
Okay.
I just read another big, huge team with billions of dollars in revenue that went back to EXP.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think that whole brokerage space, the franchisor space, whatever you want to call it. I know there's little differences between EXP and Compass and
Yep.
anywhere, right? But I think that's ripe for something. I can't tell you what. On the vendor space, I think there's going to be some more consolidation, but I don't. There's not that many bigger players left, really.
Right.
I mean, the acquisitions that went through in the 2020, 2021 were so large
Right.
of that. So that leaves like, homes.com. Let's go to there, right? Because
Okay.
we were pretty we actually almost got this one right last time.
Yeah.
Um, I will say this. I mean, there's been some just, Del Prady and others have said, there's some discrepancy in the numbers of where they are as far as traffic wise,
Yeah.
right? But they spent a shit ton of money. Um, Now, sometimes those views don't actually sometimes you might have as not as many views as Zillow's does, but you're making more money on the product. And they had what I heard, the signups for agents were crazy, right? But what if homes.com, middle of next year comes to I mean, I don't think they're doing any more Super Bowl ads. Maybe. I don't remember seeing that on the floor of NAR or heard about it. I think if it's going to be something, I think it comes from either Realtor.com. I think Realtor.com has got to make a move.
Realtor.com makes the move.
Yes.
Okay. Who do they acquire?
Who do they acquire? God, fuck. I think they like Zillow. I think Realtor.com buys one of these bigger prop tech companies, agent tools, shit like that. I mean,
Okay.
I know that's been frowned upon in the past, but they need to kind of get deeper into the agent relationships of people that are actually doing transactions. They've been making their own tools or something. There's got to be something more that they do to kind of counter the narrative of Homes.com and become more relevant. Not to say that they're least relevant, but I
Isn't
mean,
Lone Wolf like the obvious choice then?
Lone Wolf could be a good choice, but there's still Inside Real Estate. There's still Moxie Works, right? Which I know is, still trying, is a lot of those companies are still kind of trying to figure out after all the acquisitions they made. So there might be one of those three. So okay,
Okay.
that'll be my official one.
Okay.
Realtor.com either acquires Lone Wolf, Inside Real Estate, or Moxie
There
Works.
you go.
Boom. There you
Okay.
go.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Mine's going to be
You just drew it out of me here, man.
Bright MLS merges with Stellar.
Okay. Interesting.
Right.
So no, it's not contiguous, right? So
It's not contiguous.
in,
However,
in
imagine the powerhouse that would make.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. It would make a. I mean, the deals I see Bright doing more with are CRMLS. So I'm surprised you didn't say CRMLS. If it doesn't have to be next to each other,
Right.
they could be coming like a dumbbell kind of thing,
It
right?
could.
In the United
It could.
States, and or you could look at it as like they're attacking from both
Yep. It could.
coasts and coming in. I think if I was going to make that type of prediction,
Right. You would be Bright and CRMLS.
I would be
They
Bright
already
and
have kind of a
CRMLS.
partnership, so that would be the
Yeah, they
obvious
they've got
one.
Nest,
Yeah. Yep.
Nestfully, they've got
Yep.
some other things,
Yep.
right, that they've
But I
done.
think
So
I think the time zone difference and the different cultures makes it a little harder.
right.
Which
Well,
is
those
why
those those things could be turned to advantages
it
too. But
could. No,
I see you.
I'm not ruling it out. Just for
Why would you say? Why would you say Bright? Why would you say Orlando and Stellar instead of like Beaches MLS?
because I
Because they're
think
both going to be on the coast at that point, right?
that's a good point. It could be beaches, but I don't know the beaches organization that well. I don't know if you do, but
Okay.
I know the Bright organization, the Stellar organization. They're two of the most professionally run, like competent, business minded organizations. So once the whole three-way agreement starts unraveling, once all the changes that we expect are going to start happening, I could see the two of them being like, you know what, we should get together.
Yeah, I mean, Beaches does a good job. I mean, you've got even south of there is Miami, which
But
is
Miami is a separate country, right?
yeah, that's true.
So I don't think Miami is going to be
No,
the
I
next
think you're
one,
right about that. Yeah.
right? I
Interesting. Oh, that's I like that. I like your thought process there, right?
and I
Yeah,
think
okay.
I think ultimately I could see CRMLS and Bright getting together. I mean, don't I'm not saying it's, but I'm saying like the merger that is more sensible to happen next year is Bright and Stellar, right? Because between the two of them, think about like the Carolinas will stop existing in the next 3 years after that, right? Talk about a pincer movement.
I just that's really tough to yeah. I mean, it's funny
Watch,
because I
you and I are both going to hear from Brian
yeah,
from Mary Jo.
exactly.
You are
No,
smoking
you're gonna
crack.
hear from him. That
Yeah, I'm
wasn't
going to
my
hear. You're
prediction.
smoking
You're
crack.
gonna
It'll
hear
never
from him.
happen. Yeah. Hence prediction
And
goes too long.
what I'm gonna hear, what I'm gonna do is if the Realtor.com thing happens,
I
I'm
know.
calling Jimmy for my 10%.
There
Okay,
you
so
go. Hey man, you should just investment banking that deal. Just make that
yeah,
deal
good.
happen.
Yeah, I think they've already got tied into that the
All right.
right people there for sure.
Well,
Well,
let's.
before we end, I just want to say this. I put out kind of my top three. I've called most impactful, kind of following. I mean, I don't like lists, but I did put it out there, and that was James
Yep.
DeWiggins, Leo
Yep.
from
EXP.
EXP, and also Ed Zorn,
Yep.
right, who'd been on our podcast
Yep.
before. But and I know that you put me on your seven most interesting list, the year prior,
Yes.
and I appreciate that. And I wanted to put you on that, but people I think would just look on my impactful list. But I want to give you your flowers here right now at the end of the year,
Thank
Rob.
you,
That
sir.
I mean, I've learned so much from you this past year, and just to see um, your musings in 2016 about the divorce of associations and MLS are coming like your Nostradamus
Yeah.
into relevancy now. Your criticism, but I think, as you say, I think we all want NAR to be a better organization.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people were pissed off at you, but seem to be more mainstream than ever.
Yeah.
Um, I got to give it up, and again, the fucking settlement, the NAR, the Citra Burnett lawsuit that you saw coming before everybody else. If I haven't said it before, I mean, you deserve so much credit for helping this industry move forward. And they may not like the way the message has been delivered, but thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Like I said, I've learned so much from doing this podcast with you, and I'm just again so impressed with. I maybe get upset about myself, but I mean, a lot of the shit you say just it comes to fruition, and good
Well,
on you,
thank
man.
you. Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate that. And since this is our year end, let's end with. And I've all really appreciated your friendship and your insights because, your EQ is just so much higher than mine.
No, it's the EQ IQ podcast. Totally.
And I love
I will copy that for 1,000%.
and I love the way we debate and fight with each other and argue, but still like we're friends or it's
Oh,
all
of
good.
course, yeah.
So that's been really wonderful, and I appreciate that. Appreciate this year especially, getting to know Cole a little bit better as he's serving as a producer. Looking forward to next year where he'll be just killing it for us.
Yep.
And in fact, running live streams starting
That's
next year,
right.
which
Yeah.
we're going to start doing. Look for an announcement on that. And again, as always, man, it's our audience, right?
Yeah.
Small it may be, but mighty. Like I said,
Yes.
It's not. We don't have millions of followers. We don't need millions of followers. Our topic is not for millions of people. It's for like 10,000 people, maybe.
Maybe.
It might be like
Maybe
1,000
10.
people, right? Like so. We really appreciate you guys giving us time and attention. And I know some of you have said and told Greg at least that you like throw stuff at your
Yell at your radio or
and all that.
wherever your iPhone, wherever you're
I
listening to your
appreciate that you
podcast.
care enough to yell at the stereo and to want to throw things at us. So, or at least me anyway. So I really appreciate that. So with that, Happy New Year to
Happy
you and
New
Cole,
Year.
to your family. Happy New Year, everyone. And we'll see you all in 2025.
Woohoo!
Woo!